Hey makers, this is Dhruveen and welcome to the third season of the segment Talk with Devs. This is the segment where we are inviting the industry experts from the globe and we are learning something new, something innovative from them. Today's session is also something really interesting, and most of the time at the organization level, when we are working with the different Power Platform technology, it is must required thing as a part of organization to maintain the governance for the organization. And today's session is all around regarding that. We will be talking about Power Apps governance and COE starter kit. And to present that session on my show today, we have amazing speaker with us, Mr. Ashwani Kumar. Hey Ashwani, how are you?
Hey Dhruven, I'm really good. Thank you for having me here.
Yeah, I'm pleased to have you on my show today. So, before we get started with today's segment, let me just give a little bit introduction about Ashwani. So, Ashwani is from Bangalore and currently he's working as a Walmart Global Tech India, and his journey is quite interesting. He has started his journey with founder, entrepreneur, and now he is Power Platform subject matter expert. And so far with this IT industry, he has 5+ years of experience, and today he is going to share about Power Platform Center of Excellence with us. So, Ashwani, tell me one thing, like what is the end outcome or end goal that my audience will learn throughout this session? If you can just elaborate that into 5 to 6 lines, that would be great.
Thank you. Thank you for giving me this opportunity to speak on this your channel. So in today's session, we're going to talk about the Center of Excellence for Power Platform, how companies can adopt that kit which Microsoft gives for freely, and it's built by community itself, so it's quite useful. And how the administrators and the people who govern Power Apps and Power Automate and those sort of application, how they can leverage that out and take the benefits of it. How easy it's gonna be to make their life easier from this, and how we can set it up. We'll go through a detailed process, and yeah, we can see some insights as well.
That's great. That's amazing. So, without me talking more, let me just hand over this stage to Ashwani. Ashwani, you can go ahead, start sharing your screen and start with your session.
So I'll start with the Microsoft documentation as first, because its external website is pretty much accessible by everyone who is interested. So this is the landing page of Power Platform Center of Excellence Starter Kit, where you can come and see around how you want to, when you are a new organization or you are already a existing organization with Office 365 or the governance setup. This is still gonna be a useful page or to come. And you can, here in this side, you can see four sections, which is overview, admins, and govern and nurture. All these are covers the different aspects of the Center of Excellence, where overview just gives you what sort of outcomes you will be expecting from Center of Excellence. The second, admin, mostly focused for Power Platform admins, Dynamics 365, or global admins. They can leverage that section as well. For governing us, basically also it goes to into the nitty-gritty to understand how organization can be compliant, and they can keep, how they can collect the audit logs to keep all the attention that their customers or users wants to be that there. And the last part is the nurture, how adoption gonna be take place in our new organization who's going into Power Platforms, so they can understand how they're collect feedbacks, they can understand the users, how they are take makers, and how they are leveraging the platforms and apps. So that sort of sections that it gives. And I'll quickly jump into the how to set up first, because I think that is the core area that we want to focus in today's call. And then we will see the rest of the components just on a high level on the site. I'll just click on it. So setup. So Center of Excellence comes with a number of components. Once you download this sort of package, which is available on GitHub, you can also go and check the latest release when it's releases every month in the first week mostly. We have the February 2023 release as well yesterday. So this is something you can download, and also in case you find any sort of issues, you can go there and raise issue on the GitHub as well. Okay, so the first thing is set up the inventory component. Inventory component is basically lets you set up some basic applications where you can do the governance, and you can be an admin to take some environment creation request and those sort of things. We will see all the application that comes within it. So the Okay, so the first thing you need to do is install the creator kit. Now, creator kit is the sort of kit which beautifies your applications, which gives the inventory components, or we can also call it core components. It gives you the more beautification on your application that's pre-built by Microsoft and the community. So couple of when you set it up the center of excellence, that requires a particular dedicated environment, which you can use it just to keep your business partners or the administrators to that level. You don't have to share it with your makers and the users across your organization. So you can keep this whole setup in a different environment or a dedicated environment. You can follow the ALM process as well. If you want to build something custom as well in your above this center of excellence, so you can use sandbox environments, and then production environment to keep it the center of excellence live there. And if you want to do any custom changes, you can do that in the sandbox. Um, so the DLP policy that you need to set up is you need to require a set of connectors that listed here. And the process is very straightforward. You can follow one by one. The documentation goes from very detailed, from step by step, what you need to do, what you need to set up. The connections we need is approvals, some data versus Teams, Office 365 connections, some admin roles for Power Apps and Power Automate, then SharePoint and HTTP request for Azure Edit. So you can read all the graph requests or Office management APIs. So you can get all the tenant data for your users from your users, right? So you can follow these steps. You have to put some graph APIs and some links. The next thing what you need to do is download the components, which is called core component, a center of excellence, that you can down, which will, so when you download the center of excellence kits, as I said, it comes with a number of zip files, and this is the zip file you need to refer first, which gives you and this is the first step, which gives you a lot of applications and flows that you need to turn on before you go to the governance and the nurturing part. So this is the first thing we need to do. The notes on these documents are quite useful to read out, because it's highlight the importance of it and what you need to do, what you not to do, right? Now, recently, in recent changes, Center of Excellence also comes with a Center of Kit Setup Wizard, which you can use directly to set up your Center of Excellence rather than doing it manually from different places. So this will be your first thing that you need to open up now. But in case if you have already set it up, you might have encountered that you need to provide environment variables in different places. You need to turn on a couple of things. So those sort of configuration, now you can do it from this wizard as well. So there are a couple of troubleshootings is also given. And there's a walkthrough is also available in case you want to know more about how inventory component you need to set up and how solutions you can do this also using this video as well. The next couple of things, environment variable, these are quite useful to know prior to do this, which is to understand what is going to be your admin email ID, what's your actual company name, what you need to put it there. So everyone that will be displayed across emails, apps, and so forth. um, Individual email, you need to be taken care of how this individual email is going to be. It could be your service account email, it could be your user email. it depends on how you want to deploy. In a best practice, we use service account to deploy the whole solution at the center of excellence. So it should not depend on a particular user. It should so that service account can be used by a team rather than a single particular person. You need to decide what would be the in case you are not having 365 groups for makers, then you need to create that first. Then also the users group as well. Then we need graph URL, which is already given. In case you are commercial cloud, if you are having commercial cloud, then you can just provide the graph.microsoft.com. But in case of a government bodies or GCC high or dot environment, then you need to check that out what the graph you are need to provide and what would be their endpoints. Uh, for the next case, again, similar to makers environment variable, you need to provide that those sort of links. Whether if it is commercial, it simply says make.powerapps.com. But in case you need to check for the government service URLs for the other tenants. The next one we have is also player. So it goes for again when we launch an application, it's open up right apps.powerapps.com. So that would be your commercial URL, and similarly the respective type of other clouds are also given here. So you can use these URLs to put into your environment variable when you're setting up your environment, and the same goes for there. Uh, Tenant ID, you need to know the tenant ID. You can find this from Azure portal, or you can also check it from the URL that opens up a Power Platform. So you can find that it's a 16-digit code. You can find that out in your URLs. Okay, so the next thing is once you install the Center of Excellence, um, the core component kit, make sure you are using the latest version uh, as monthly updates are coming. So all the prior bugs get fixed by Microsoft developers and the community people as well. So that I think it would be really good to just keep your Center of Excellence updated each month, whether you want to follow the ALM process or you want to do it manually. So that is also something you need to take care of. Um, Now, as I said, core components comes with a lot of apps and flows. So once you install the app, the core components, you will gonna see something like this. Let me show it to you. So it shows something like this. Which is consists of 11 applications, 16 choice, 81 flows. There are two dashboards as well. The security maps are there. Security roles are there. Site maps are there. You're gonna see a huge number of tables where it collects a lot of data. So you can see audit logs, you can see DLP policies, you can get a list of environments that's available. So these tables basically sits on the Dataverse, and the Center of Excellence consume Dataverse to for the collecting all the information and the data from across your organization, and the flows are connected to it. So you need to have a premium license. Obviously, we are using custom connector, we are using Dataverse, we are using HTTP connectors. So you need to have a premium license as well with your service account or to the user that if you are installing by that. So all these components come back here. Okay. So turn on the child flow. So the next step you need to do is turn on the child flows. You need to start from here. You can follow the order or you can skip in case you do not want to add. But make sure helpers and cleanup helpers are quite useful in case you want to check something whether it's deleted or not. So these flows will be quite useful if you want to set up initially and this is the first time you are setting up. So that is something you need to do. The next is to turn on setup flows. Setup flows are quite useful. Make sure the setup template V3s are turned on for applications, whether it's a COE solution, whether it's a configuration email, whether it's a connector. So all these things you need to turn on as a step of procedure. Then again, turning on the inventory flows, which gonna collect all the data for the rest of the application that you're gonna have, either on an AI model, either on an apps or a business flow process, or a custom connectors if users have built already or not. You need to find the connections ID, what has been used just for security purposes as well. You can collect all the information around flows, portals, Power Virtual Agents, solutions, and model-driven apps as well. And all these flows are also associated with sync admin sync template v3, which is also quite a useful Power Automate to turn on prior to that. And also you can turn it on. You can turn on based on your needs. You don't have to turn it on everything in case you are limited or being constrained to a specific application that you manage. You can turn on only that particular Power Automates. In case the other teams manage that, but in case you are setting up the center of excellence for the whole organization, for the whole application set that comes under Power Platform, then you can also turn on the rest of the Power Automates. But that is necessary. Depends on your needs and the and what you want to take visibility on or get into your dashboard and look after it. So I'll just move to, okay, so the next step is you need to set up the app registration. So you can leverage the custom connector. That is one of the very much required aspect for setting up the core components, where you need to go to the Azure portal and then you need to do a app registration. That app registration leverage the graph APIs which you put it in one of the environment variable as well. So it's a very simple process. Go to the portal.azure.com, go to the Active Directory, open up the app registration Azure service, and then you can just give it a name, whatever you want to call it. You can call it Power Platform 365 API service, that sort of something you can name it, and then select the APIs. You need to add an APIs. There will be three APIs that we need. One is the Microsoft Graph delegated permission, and then there is an application permission, and the service that we need is the service message to read all, because these gonna read all the emails from that comes. The next thing is you need to, so this is a bit of lengthy process. As I said, setting up the center of excellence is not going to be very straightforward within your organization. So you need to go through your global admins as well to ask the permission so they can allow that APIs to your registered app. So that app registration, client ID or client secrets, you need to put into your custom connector so that custom connector can pull the information and you can use it with your center of excellence. So once that your admin consent is granted, you need to generate a client certificate and secrets. So the client secrets is going to be one time, so you need to keep copy pasted somewhere where you can keep it safe. Either you can also leverage the Azure Key Vault in case you do not want the because certificates based on the organizational policy you might have in place, you might have only 1 month, 30 days, or 3 months or 6 months of expiration period. So in case you do not want to make fault in your CI starter kit, because if the certificates expire, uh, your custom flows will gonna stop, and that will lead you to the failures. And so that's why you want to either use Azure keywords so you don't have to keep updating your client secrets and updating the environments variable. So that is something you can decide whether which way you want to go, whether you want to give some dedicated support over it so that person can keep updating once the certificate or secrets expires, or either you can take visibility over Azure Key Vault and then you can use that to keep it updated each time. The next thing you need to set up is the command center application ID. So the details that we will get after registering the app, you need to provide that into the environment variables, which is called command center application ID. So the client ID goes there, client secrets goes to command center client secrets, and the next last one is in case you are using Azure keyboard, you need to provide that sort of details here in here as well. Same goes for GCC. In case for GCC, the respective details are given here. Um, once this core components are set it up, the next thing is what you need to do is setting up the audit logs. You need to set up a Power BI dashboards, so you can have a little bit of visibility what's going on when you turn on all those flows, what's data is coming, what's not. So those sort of things might be the next step that you need to move ahead. So I'll jump down. I'm gonna skip this environment request management and the other things because, as I said, next step would be very highly um, thing that you need to do first is the turning on the audit log so you can have more visibility and a dashboard setup. So I'll just go to the collect audit logs data. We'll come down the rest of the sections once we will see the audit logs in Power BI dashboard. Setting up the audit log connector is the first thing that we need to do to get the telemetry data so we can understand who users are launching the applications, who is editing, what sort of permission they are giving, when they are giving, right? So those sort of things we need to capture it out using that custom connectors, which comes with COE starter kit. So before you set up the audit log connector, you need to make sure that the Office 365 audit log search is turned on a tenant level. That generally turned on most of the organization, but yeah, at least make sure beforehand that is turned on. That you have user identity running, the flow must have the permission to use the audit log. So that is also the one thing that you need to check beforehand. It's because in case of service accounts that generally they don't some organization doesn't give that sort of permission to do, so make sure that whichever service account or your user account that you're using does have that sort of permission. And also, you need to make sure the subscription that support unified audit logging is should be there. Generally, this also generally available with most of the users accounts, service accounts, so that should be okay. And the last thing is that global admin is required to configure the Azure AD app registration, which we did in the last step to give that sort of consent, right? So that is one thing you need to do. The custom connector we are talking about called Office 365 Management APIs. And that's the name also, and that's what we will call it. And it basically authenticates with your Azure AD, and the grant, the rights that has been permitted by the um, global admins gonna use that. So next step is to create the app registration. Um, so this is also we have done in the core component. Now you're gonna say why we are doing this. The third API that we haven't got in that our app was the Office API. So let's see how we can do that. So just whichever application you have registered, you can use the same. You don't have to register a new one. You can just add that service into your the same app register that you did for core components, or I would say inventory components. Just go there, add a new API, and that would be called Office 365 Management API, dedicated permission, and reading the activity feeds. So that is something you need to tick out and add, get it approved from your global admins. And once the consent is granted to your application, then you can move ahead and set up the custom connector. So the custom connector you will find in make.powerapps.com under the data part. It's called custom connector section. You can see all the custom connector either built by your users in case you are logging with your admin credentials. You can see it there. In case you are using your personal, probably if it is not shared with you, you might not be able to see. But this one, whichever account you're using for setting up the center of excellence, it will be visible to you. So Office 365 Management API, you can go ahead and do the editing. Once you start editing, you need to put You need to select the authentication type, which is auth 2.0. That is something we are using here. You can try out the other authentication, but we need more descriptive because most of the things works on under organization or OAuth. Um, so that is something you need to set up. You need to provide the client ID that for the app registered that you are using for the same permission that we have set it up for Office 365 here. So make sure that one app that you can use rather than having two different app registered for both core components and for collecting audit log. It would be good to have a unified app registered. Then you have to provide the client secret that you generated. You can provide the same details. The tenant ID, as I said, the tenant ID you can find it from the your Azure portal or from the links that apps opens up. So that is there. And then you can update the connector. And if you want to test it out, make sure your test runs and it gives a positive response, which is 200. Um, so the next thing what you need to do is once the app, your custom connector is set it up, you can set up the Power Automate. Uh, the Power Automates once you import, you need to update some details in the environment variable in case you missed to provide all those client secrets for the app registered that you had done. So that is something you need to do. Set up the connections because Office 365 connection would be coming up. So you need to connect your flows with that custom connector. So once that is also done, make sure you have the two power automates that comes with the custom connector audit logs, which is the admin sync log and the admin sync log as well. There is the two, one is the child and one is the parent one. So just make sure that those custom connectors are configured with your account, and then you will be good to go. And yes, so you need to think about when before you are on turning it on, make sure if you need to change your time intervals or how you want to collect those logs when. So that is something you can think of based on your organizational policy. Generally, this is set to default to 1 day into 1 hour segments. So in case you want to change or modify something that you can also do via editing in the Power Automate. But these Power Automates are managed Power Automate, so you have to remove the managed layer to become it unmanaged, or you can use the same Power Automate and maybe create your custom one and use that in case the requirements are quite different from this. So all the turning ons, as I said, it's all a step of a part. You have to turn on all the Power Automates. It depends. You can see the default configurations, what is already set it up for Power Automates. Starting time, let's say 1 day. Starting time interval is 1 unit is day, so it's gonna be 1 day, and the interval is 1, and unit is 1, so it's gonna be 1 hour, and the segment is 60, which is 60 seconds, 60 minutes time limit. So it will create 24 child flows. It will run every 1 hour. It will hit trigger the Power Automate, and it will go to the 60, which is the limit, which is 60, right? So that is going to be there. The child flow will do the work and pull, all the data which is collected in Office 365 application for a 1 hour period, and the log will be collected into your Dataverse or whatever the backend data source you wanted to use. In case you wanted to change that, by default, it's a Dataverse table that we have shown in the past. So that is how you can get that. How to get the older data is quite the common question we get. So it depends. It's not the Power Automates generally doesn't not gonna pull the previous data because when you turn out, it just works further on. It doesn't pull back the historic data. So something that you might need to work on with your global teams or the people who does have access to the Microsoft Purview or the security and compliance part. So that is something you might have to pull down in case you want to figure out the older data, what happened. Now coming back to the setup, the Power BI, and this is the very best part that I like, uh, because this gives you the visibility over your organization, how things are going out. So here in this case, Power BI is quite useful. So in case you are using service account, you need to have a Power BI Pro license, so you can share it with your stakeholders and use premium workspace in case you want to leverage the premium facilities as well. So that is also you can try out. This also documentation also have how to set up the Power BI, but we'll just go over very general details over this. So the kit that you downloaded gonna have the Power BI also. It's gonna called production COE dashboard, and it will be underscore whatever the month and year that it was released for, whichever version you are having. So these will be the version details will be available to with you. Now, you need to provide a couple of things while setting up. You need to know your environment URL, which environment you are using for Center of Excellence, so it can pull the data from the dataverse of that environment. So that sort of configuration you need to do. Just make sure you are using in case when you are providing the organizational URL or the environment URL, I would say just make sure it does not include https dot slash slash, right. So that is something you need to go through this documentation. This is quite easily to set it up. It's not comes only with one Power BI. It comes with a set of Power BI. So each Power BI has its own dedicated visibilities over some different things. So, and it does not, each Power BI does have some different pages that you can go over and see what's happening in there. So it just the audit logs that we have collected and the flows that we have turned on from core or inventory components are gonna be represented here on these Power BI reports in a nicer way. So a couple of things here you can go through in case you get some errors, you can troubleshoot it out in case your configuration is not working, and those sort of things are available. Once the Power BI is set it up, um, I cannot show the Power BI because of the confidentiality of the data, but the visibility is more like you can see. I'll just go on top. So this one, for the visibility purpose, we can see the overview of the Power Apps. We can see the overview of the Power Automates and chatbots. We can see the overview of environments, how all the environments has been created, who created, when created, in which area, in which regions your environments are most popular are. So those sort of things you can do. You can see the graphs, which environments are getting created more. Either it's a production, sandbox, or teams. You can also give a full overview of teams environment as well. So it's not just a dashboard for a one application or just for Power Apps and Power Automate, but it will give you overall visibility for the Power Platform, which also somewhere teams also comes inside here. So that is also interesting. You can get the visibility. You can collaborate with the team who is managing the teams. So you can also consult with them, help them in the setting up the governance, how teams can be used, because Power Apps and Power Automate also comes inside teams. So that is also the other aspects of that you can think of. Um, so yeah, and for governing, you can also see some app risk assessments quite clearly defined. You can read about it in the Center of Excellence documentation around this. You can do the flow archive, app archive, which apps have been archived. We will talk about this in a little bit also. And you can also see the nurture part, which is where your makers are, who is the most popular maker, who is building tons of apps and flows in your case. And you can also see the app gurus in case you want to make the champions in the business side that can also those citizen developers, right? Those citizen developers who's the more popular between among business and Those sort of things you can see, and you can also see the adoption rate, how your Power Platform is working. So this dashboard is quite useful for the IT stakeholders, business stakeholders, and the people who's work around Power Platform on a heavily basis. So that this is going to be quite useful. Now I'm moving back to our environment request management. So setting up the environment request component is where which is comes with the core components. So you might have already installed this as a part of core components. Now in here, this is gonna be setting up your environment. So you make sure your users or makers gonna request the environments. So you can leverage this application to open up the doorway for people to request either they want a sandbox developer or a production environment, whichever they like. For the teams, I'm not sure how your organization gonna follow. Some organizations let their users to create teams environments by themselves. Some organizations either use ServiceNow request to create a new teams environment, or any other application that they want to give. But there would be depends. It depends on the organization. So that is something you need to see how those environments gonna get created. And also, in case you are interested to use this application, it would be then you might have to go through this process and set it up. So in this case, also you need to provide the environment URL for the admins, which app is going to be used for the environment request. So there will be a two different version. One is the admin app, and there will be a non-admin app, which is going to be used by makers. So that one you can expose to the your makers or users, so they can raise a request to create a new environment, and you can use the admin environment where it connects with a certain flows that automatically creates the environments for you, and you can see all the requests that's going to come down from that applications as well. So it's quite handy in case you don't have ServiceNow or any other platform set it up for your environment requests, but this is something you can start with. Turning on flows are there, so there are number of flows which DLP request flows and the environments request flows. So these things, as the name suggests, you can read it out as well what they do exactly, and you can turn it on based on your needs in case you want to. So that is something you can do. As I said, that there will be an admin app, and there will be a maker. So maker will use this to request a new environment, but for the admin, you can have the full visibility over it, and then you can approve this via approving it. It will do the rest of the job via Power Automate. So environment variable you need to provide, as I said, which will be your admin environment app, not the maker's one. So just make sure that you are filling with the right details. Next, we want to move to set up the core components. So set up the core components also comes with some certain things that you need to do, like community URL, which community you are using. Either it's a Yammer community or it's a Teams environment that you are exposing it to your, or the other organization does have other places as well that they can enforce their community and build the community across for Power Platform. So just make sure you're gonna put that URL into this, so that will be sent out to any new person who's joining your organization as a welcome email. So that sort of onboarding would happen quite on a very good basis. You can all so as a other part of the core component, you can turn on the couple of more flows such as capacity alerts in case you are going over the dataverse capacity. So that is also something you can make a visibility over. So as an admin, you can get those alerts when you are hitting the capacity. There's a certain date, so 60 days prior to that, you will get an alert. Add-ons alert you can also see, because number of add-ons are there, such as I think it was app share. So that is something you can use to get an alerts on in case you want to allocate some AI builder credits to the other environments in case it's getting over consumed or not. So those sort of alerts would come, and also the app catalog request access. So app catalog is also for people. to see all the apps that's in your tenant. So it's quite useful to see rather than just going around powerappsmaker.com and then see the number of that's been shared with them or to the organization. So that will be also quite useful in case you want to give a more visibility over it and with the description why it's made for and those sort of things. Um, and then, yeah, you need to update those. So this is around the rest of the core component that you can turn on and leverage it. Now I'll be moving to the governance part. So COE Starter Kit comes with the governance component as well. So in the governance component, first thing I think let's look at the what's the zip called. So you need to install the solution called Center of Excellence Audit component. So this is one where you can leverage the governance aspects of this. Um, so I'll just move up now again. So how you going to set it up? So this I don't know why this is happening, but this is how it worked. I think there's something mechanism behind Microsoft build this behind the scene that you need to create a initial flow. Sometimes people miss this out because they think they just have to import the zip and then it should work. Everything would work as for the as it did for core components. But initially, you need to set up a approval flow because you need to enable the connection with your approval which is built-in connector. So that for that case you need to just create a flow, and this is the easiest process that I think we can come up with. And you can name it dummy approval flow, admin dummy approval flow, and then you just have to configure. You can assign it to yourself and then create an approval flow. And once you test and run it, you will gonna see these two solution gonna pop up in your environment, which is called Microsoft Flow Approvals and the Microsoft Flow Approvals Core solution. So these two solutions will be leveraged to set up your governance part as well. So this is something you need to do before you import this governance component solution. So once this is also done, um, it comes with a set of applications as well, different set of application. The first application would be the compliance one. And if you're following this wizard process, you can also do this, but I'll take it how you can do it manually as a traditional way that we were doing. So you need to provide the developer compliance center app URL in one of the environment variables, which is going to come. I think there is around 16 environments variable that you might be setting up throughout the whole center of excellence setup process. Um, and then you have to provide this applications. Once you install that governance component solution, you will see this app will be coming to your into the app section. So, what does the compliance process does, and how you can use this out? So, there are certain cases that you want to exempt your environments to not be compliant. So, in case you want to make those changes that just for even just taking a case of center of excellence, that we do not want to make this environment to be a compliant for and managed, right? So because this is going to be a quite handy environment for administrative purposes. So these sort of use cases or a Dynamics 365 application environments you might want to reevaluate and see whether you want to exempt this or not. So those sort of these application and this will help you to monitor and go through your compliance process. So you need to also align this with your organization compliance process, how your organization make something compliant or not. So probably this will give you in conjunction with when you are doing this for your business teams to make sure that your environments are compliant either or not. So you need to turn on couple of flows again in the governance, not in a governance. I think it's in core component. So when you are these will be will be called compliance, related with the compliance. So you will see the naming as well. All the names would be there. It covers apps, chatbots, custom flow, desktop flows as well. So all to check all these whether it's going to be compliant or not. So the compliant request can also come to you. So you can share with your makers, develop a compliance center. It's a Canvas app. So there are two versions of the apps will be available for this, either a Canvas app or a model-driven app. You can use it. Um, and then you need to provide, so the compliance, again, as I said, there will be some default values for the Power Automates that's going to turn on. So make sure while you are, if you want to customize it out based on your organization compliance process, you might have to think about this while setting it up, I think. So that is the other thing that I wanted to discuss on the compliance process. Let's move to the inactivity process. A lot of organization does have the flows running which is not in used, or the orphaned flows, that's a lot of people leave the company, so those flows gets orphaned because there is no identity which is running that, and all the whole process that we might have set it up, all the solution we might have built are goes down. And then the other team members who are left in the organization, they feel the pain why it's not being running, and those sort of automations fails out, and it doesn't provide adds value further on. So to keep that in mind, for from the admin view, I would say inactivity process is quite useful to figure out which are unused Canvas apps are there, because a lot of people create test apps and then they never open it up after some time once the test is done. So in a default environment, this is the especially the case that happens. So to keep the default environment keep and clean, neat and clean, right? This is something we need to look at. And this flows will helps a lot. And this is also comes as a part of setup wizard. So this is also something you can look at, what need to be configured, what need to be details are provided. But I'll go to the manual process again. Um, so configurations, as I said, individual emails that you need to set up so it can, send the distribution, the emails to the distribution lists and stuff. So, and clean up old objects. So that is you need to also give. Yeah. So this is basically the Canvas app. So that app. URL that you need to provide it. It's an optional. So there are some optional environment variable, whether you want to give it or not. But I think giving it would be a best thing that we can do. So it can the whole Power Automate and the whole functions work properly. The flow approvals URL you can also give. It's a part of the COE environment. So whatever the COE environment that you are using, you can give that out. So this process is mostly more like you can use the model driven app to first get the visibility in case you want to in case you want to use a UI for it. But there are flows that runs behind the scene, which is inactivity notifications. So as this might be very good thing to do as early as possible, because from that point you can start getting notifications, and they have this check and approval process whether, so it depends, it's going to have some duration. I think you need to look at the duration very carefully in details, because when you want to remind your users that this is not notified, and this is quite a big decisions across the enterprise level that you need to think of when you want to call out that the Power Automate is not running for which period of time, or which app is not being used for which period of time. So that sort of discussions is quite useful uh, to do before you are turning it on, all these flows. And in case you want to modify this out, you can, based on your organizational approach how you want to do this. And yeah, so these are things, and then you can do the excuse from archival process as well. So you can use this model driven called Power Platform Admin View. This is can you can use it for the environments in case you do not want them that environment to be following these inactivity notifications. You can exempt that from this process. So this is something you can also do because once this inactivity, once you identify and any particular app or flow once has been identified as an inactivity, that will be gonna go and get archived. That is something we'll also see what happens there because archiving is one of the things, but also what we'll see what happens with the orphan resources or quarantine resources just in a second. Just move to the next one, which is the orphan resources. So as I said, a lot of people leave the organizations in case they are makers, they are users, or they might have created something that might have been using their own their identity. So that is quite cumbersome to maintain, and the people who's depend on that process, who's depend on those who are the users, who are, they get very annoyed with that this is not working, and it leads to a lot of lots of disadvantage. Um, it does not outline in a proper way. So that is also something we want to ignore once somebody leaves. So the best practice we do is to deploy something which is not productive. You need to move to the service account because uh, if your organization is following a automation process which is huge and it does have more than certain users, probably you need to think of that moving it to the service accounts which organization can maintain rather than you leaving the company. So that is also something that's quite organizational discussions that might have to think of. But for the orphaned objects, what we're going to think of is you need to turn on two flows as well again, which is the child flow and the parent flow for requesting orphaned objects reassigned. In case it goes to the managers, basically it goes to the managers and asking that this is this Power Automate or this app got orphaned for some period of time, and then they have to reassign it to someone new in case they have. Either they can take the ownership on themselves or they can reassign to a new resource that they might want to use. Either they can use the service account next time. So this is something they can think of. The next one, we're gonna go to set up a quarantine component. Again, the setup wizard is there. You want to turn it on or turn it off based on the um, the compliance that you want or the quarantine process you want to implement on that case. So setup wizard is quite good to use, but you have to think of whether you want to customize something before turning it on or turning it off. So that is something this is still in a preview. So it says preview. So make sure you are using preview feature just as just for testing purposes, not for production use. So that is still I'll go over manually rather than going over setup wizard. So in this case, the compliant quarantine app gonna go over certain period of time based on non-compliance process. How if your compliance process is to keep something compliant for a certain period of time, in case that is not compliant, then this flows which we want to turn on, which called setup quarantine status and quarantine non-compliant app. Then it's gonna send that. Notifications to the makers or the users that this application or this flow is not compliant, and we want to quarantine this app in case you do not respond in that particular period of time. So that is also quite good to use because a lot of people creates application once in a day and then they forget about it, and that is not compliant even. A lot of people use as premium feature just by using trial licenses or a trial, activating the trial on their accounts and in those environments which are not exempted. So that is quite useful. These Power Automates quite useful to monitor that out. um, so this is also a very good process to quarantine your app so you can have the full visibility which app is going to quarantine in which period of time. So that is in a Power BI, you can also have this visibility over it. But in case you want to exempt any excuse any app of flow quarantine, you can also do it from a model-driven app that comes with the core component. So model-driven is quite useful, a dashboard that can leverage by any of the admins in day-to-day basis for Power Platform. So that is also something you can look at. There are some, again, the variable you need to set. So it's set for 7 days, as I said, default. So if you want to change the to keep something running for non-compliant more than 7 days, you can change the default value. So that's something you can think of as well. Okay, now moving to the setup nurture components. Nurture is quite useful when you want to know your presence or within your organization, how you are doing, how friendly your users are, how the adoption rate is going on. So this is something you can extend your capability via COE starter kit. It comes with certain more components, which is video hub component. You can see in the top right corner, video hub component, training in a day component, which is quite popular for your users to become, get trained. These provides a lot of basic application developments and how they can do it and spend a day just to learn how to get familiar with the app and flows, and then they can build their application their own down the line. Then the setup maker assessment components as well. So you can also assess your makers to make sure they are keep learning, they are moving ahead. So you can also check that out. You can also use the Pulse survey feedback. So it's basically a Microsoft form which you can send to your makers and then collect the feedback. So it will give you more visibility over your Pulse rate. Template catalog is also there. So template catalog is basically going to provide you different set of templates that makers can use, and you can all there's a external site as well where you can publish certain components in case you are building components, custom components for Power Platform, so that you can publish it out so others can also use it either within organization or externally. So that sort of things you can also extend that to your users and makers to use it, the templates, pre-built templates within their applications. Set up the product newsletter. So this is quite useful in case any new things are coming up because it's coming. Power Platform is growing and it's getting very big and more popular within the organization. So you need to keep your makers and users keeping up with the pace, how things are growing and changing. So the product newsletters would be quite handy for everyone who's involved in this. And then, so this is the nurture component that you can look at, and the URL will be provided over the video description as well. So I'll moving on to the next couple of the remaining bits, which is the innovation backlog component. This is also comes within the center of excellence. In case you do not have a innovation mechanism set it up within your organization yet, probably this is something you can look at. This is where people can come and submit their ideas, which is with their open mind, right? It can be anything. It's not to be a technical. It can be a business-oriented idea. It can be any idea that. So it's basically innovation, right? So that is something you can extend to your users and makers, or within your whole organization, which is to submit the ideas and that they need to build either via on Power Platforms even. So that is something you can extend to your makers, and this tool can be used. It does have a process of approval as well, so it's not just an idea that got submitted and doesn't know, nobody knows ever about it. It does have a dashboard. You can look at what's the idea has been submitted, what's the stage it's the stage is in. It's in an approval stage or it's in a building stage, or whether this whole idea has been completed. So those sort of things you can do. You can have a complexity score. You can see the ROI as well. What would be, so there will be a set of questions that gonna ask as a prerequisite. So this is something you can also extend to your users. Next we want to do is the setting up the Microsoft Power Platform admin. planning component. This is quite useful for the administrators. I will go in more detail how it comes and how it looks like. Behind the scenes, what your IT and excellence teams is doing is we are setting up all these governance and the policies and the compliance strategies. All these things are going on while managing the nurturing part as well. So these things are quite lengthy and quite um, you know useful to monitor it out in case your administrators does not have visibility over this. So this extends the use case of the center of excellence for administrators as well. It's just not only that it will gonna enable for users or makers, but it's also for administrators, which the admins can also take the benefit out of it. So it's gonna help you design your team better. It's gonna You can review where you're spending your time, whether look for automations or innovations. So admins can also think of what sort of things they want to do down the line. This also helps you to administer lot of different tasks, lot of different teams that you can do. So this is quite new, quite newly released. So probably you might have to give it a look, and you can also see some efforts such as whatever you put or focus time either on reporting on a security side or a configuration side. um, you can also see the how the reactive or proactive your team is. This is quite useful for the people or the managers who's just not doing the adoption for Power Platform, but also gonna do the monitoring, or whether they want to use the service now down the line, or they want to extend the COE capabilities for their teams. So this is something gonna be a quite useful uh, component that you can explore. Now let's see what's the component consists of. Component consists of mostly model-driven apps and insights and the Power BI dashboard. It's built over some policies. The environment that you need, the DLP policy would be there. It also covers the rest of the Power applications that's gonna be there. So this is also something gonna be you can manage your task and you can do this component set it up, and you can also install it. I think it comes with the COE first, only the same zip that you're gonna download. You don't have to download it as a separate, but yeah, this is something you can look at. Update the admin task data. So this is something you might have to do while setting it up. You have all these options to make sure that you can work on this. So probably this will be some organization use Jira as their primary project management or their intake management stuff. But in case there it's not available, then you can also extend this out for your on day-to-day task. And the Power BI looks like something like this: teams, outsourcing, automations. Um, so this is also you can look at. You can break down your balances of a proactive and reactive balances. How you want to pick this up? Either it's an ad hoc task or it's urgent, or what's the criticality of that. So that is also quite good and quite good visibility over the IT stakeholders. Over they can see this, and also you can categorize it into multiple factors that's available there. So this is also for admins to consider it in case they do not have currently this sort of visibility. Quite gonna be some useful insights for admin to be taken care of. The next thing we want to discuss is set up the theming component. So theming component is not necessary you need to set up, but this is also something you can import down the line for your users or for yourselves as a team, right? This is something you can use to manage and share themes, pre-built themes, or the people gonna be building the more themes down the line for Power Platform, and that will be gonna come into this. So this is contains a multiple designs, properties, fonts, colors, borders. So you can extend this so people can use this application to beautify their application while building it. So but one thing you need to do is enable the Power Apps Component Framework, because this is using PCF that we call. So this is something you need to enable it in whichever tenant environment you are going to import this into. So either it can be a same environment that you want to import into where you have set it up the center of excellence, but just make sure you need to enable this. And enabling the PCF might be something you might have to discuss with your security team beforehand. So yeah, so that's all I think I have, Dhruvan, for me to discuss for today.
Yeah, thank you so much, Ashwani, for discussing all of this component. And for all the audience who are following us so far, like it's like this overall COE configuration, like as Ashwani explained this within an hour. Obviously, when you set it up, it will take time. It's not something that within 1 hour or 2 hour you can set it up, but just go through the documentation. So we conclude that like for COE, there are main four components available like admin, governance, compliance, and nurture. And depending on your requirement, you can specific the appropriate component. But over here in COE, some component has dependencies as well on one another. Like core component is must component. You need to have to set up your governance and compliance on top of that. So when you go through the documentation, you will get all the information in detail, and the links are available in the description box. So always go there and start installing this COE starter kit with your environment, and just implement this governance for your organization. That will make your life easier as an admin, and as an organization you can manage everything at a single place. So it's very useful for you. So thanks a lot, Ashwani, for sharing all of these insights, because it's a really helpful. Because most of the time when someone is new into COE starter kit, when they are just going through this documentation, they are like, oh, it's too lengthy. But within this 1 hour, at least you summarize those things, so they at least have an idea that what does it offer and how they can at least start with. So it's just a matter that you need to follow each step one by one. Just follow the steps, like if it says turn on the flow, like share the app, these three groups you need, just follow those things and you are good to set up this kit for yourself. And now for this COE starter kit, as Ashwani mentioned, at many places in the app, like they are coming with the setup wizard. So it is becoming more easy compared to the one we are setting up around 6 months or 1 year back. Like now they have a stable wizard. So even if you want to try that, just do it. So it's just a matter that you need to go to next, turn on all the flows, and you are done with the setup of COE starter kit. So yeah, just share your experiences with us in the comment section. How do you find this video? And I have provided the LinkedIn account of Ashwani as well. So if you have a dedicated question related COE to him, you can directly reach out to him on LinkedIn and just ask your questions. So yeah, uh, that's it for today. And thank you so much, Ashwani, for sharing your experience for overall Center of Excellence with the audience. And it's a really helpful session for everyone who is very new for setting up this COE starter kit. So with this is Dhruvin signing off. See you in the next session with some amazing content. Till then, have a great day. Goodbye.